Has anybody here been watching Poldark? Yeah, a couple of hands. I saw it for the first time last Sunday evening, and it must be good, because it's on from 9 o'clock till 10 o'clock, and I didn't fall asleep, which is almost unprecedented. It's about a soldier who comes back from the war to his family estate in Cornwall. His uncle lives nearby, and his uncle has a daughter called Verity, and she falls in love with a sea captain who has a very dubious past. And so Verity's father and her brother forbid her from spending any time with this sea captain, but they don't comply, and then they are found together in Poldark's house talking. And there's a bit of argy-bargy, and then the man Verity loves and her own brother fight a duel. They each walk 10 paces away from each other, they turn and they fire at each other. And if you think about it, there can be no happy outcome, can there? The brother goes down, and it looks as though he has been mortally wounded. And Verity, screaming with anguish, she says to this sea captain, "After everything that's gone on, surely you can see that I cannot marry you now. I cannot marry you now." And this sea captain nods his head, and off he goes, and he'll never see Verity again. The brother survives. But of course, this family will never be the same again, will it? There has been irreparable damage to this family. People don't fight duels today, do they? At least I don't think they do, not in this country. But a man I used to play golf with, and he was the most mild-mannered and gentle of men. He once told me that he hadn't spoken or seen his daughter for years and years. And so, of course, I asked him why, and he said, well, she decided to marry a man who I didn't really like. I never liked him. But me and my son, we went along to the man's stag night just a couple of nights before his wedding, and we got into a fight with him, a real fight with him. And, of course, we didn't go to the wedding. And none of us have ever seen or spoken to my daughter again, and that was years ago. For some of us, family life has been a great blessing, hasn't it? But sometimes there can be nothing more destructive than a dysfunctional family. And so as we start this little series looking at the character of Jacob, I want to say two things that I think are really amazing and a warning. Okay, so two things that I think are amazing. First, if you're a Christian, you are a descendant, you are part of one of the most dysfunctional families in history. Like it or not, through Christ, Jacob's story is your story. That's why it matters. And then secondly, in spite of all the sin and the mess and the hurt, God's plans cannot be broken. He will achieve his purposes, whatever havoc we might cause. But here's the warning, as we look at the story of Jacob, please don't look for heroes. There aren't any. We are getting an insight into the hearts of real people. And they are good, bad, and ugly. Just like you and I. Real people are a mix. So, we're going to start with a man called Isaac, okay? As Yoda would say, the force is strong with him. He has a mum and dad who love him, and they provide everything for him. Isaac is the heir of all God's promises, and his parents go to great lengths to find him a suitable wife. And that wife is Rebecca. She is beautiful. She is energetic. She is charismatic. And between them, Isaac and Rebecca are the talk of the town. Okay? They are the dream couple. But they have one great sadness. They cannot have children. They're married nearly 20 years before Rebecca finally becomes pregnant. And at that point, God tells her that she will give birth to twins. But he demonstrates his sovereign election and grace in this. He tells her the older will serve the younger. The younger of the two will be the heir. That is really unusual. The day comes to give birth, and that's where we pick it up in Genesis chapter 25. So do have that open. Just as God promised, it is twins. The first boy to have come out must have been very attractive because we're told that he was red and very hairy. And so he is named Esau, which means hairy. The second boy, please note, that is the younger boy, he comes out grasping Esau's heel, and so he is named Jacob, which simply means he grasps the heel. But it comes to mean something else, as we're going to see. As they grow, they continue to be very different. Esau likes the outdoors. He's always out and about hunting and doing stuff. I guess he was physically strong and powerful, as well as red and hairy. Jacob, on the other hand, is a quiet man who stays among the tents. But what is really, really significant is chapter 25, verse 28. I'd love you to look down at it with me. Isaac loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Isaac and Rebekah both have a favourite, and that favouritism is really obvious. And you know and I know, in any family where that sort of thing goes on, there are going to be some horrible consequences. We'll get to those in a moment, but one day Esau comes in, and it was beautifully read, absolutely starving, hungry. Jacob, hanging around the tents, because that's what he does, has been making a stew. Quick, let me have some of that stew, says Esau. I'm famished. But verse 31, Jacob replied, first sell me your birthright. It's very calculating. What's a bit of stew between twin brothers? I'll tell you what, the other day, I heard one of my older children, I won't name them, trying to extract 5p from 6-year-old Isaac. That is my Isaac. And it sounded like exploitation to me, so I went to intervene. But it turns out it was actually a very good deal. It went like this. You give me 5p, I'll take your 5p into school, I'll turn it into 20p's worth of sweets, I'll bring the sweets back and give them to you. The fact that Isaac had handed over £5 rather than 5p was unfortunate, but it was still a good deal. This isn't. Jacob exploits his brother's weakness and stupidity. Look, I'm about to die, says Esau, plainly not about to die. What good is the birthright to me? Just give me the food. Now, it reminds me of the time back at university when my friend and I had finished our exams, and we thought it would be a really lovely thing to make our flatmates a curry out of dog food. I still remember it was a yellow tin of leaner, meaty chunks from Gateway. We cooked it up and we thought it was the funniest thing in the world. We laughed and we laughed ourselves stupid, and then we had second thoughts. We thought, you can't feed dog food to people, can you? But one of our flatmates suddenly ran in, a bit like Esau, absolutely famished. He said, cool, that smells fantastic. He ran into the kitchen and he helped himself to the curry made from dog food. That's what happens here. Esau doesn't stop to think. He trades a bowl of stew for his birthright. He chooses instant gratification over great long-term benefit. The birthright belonged to the firstborn son. It was a position of honour and blessing, and Esau sold it for some bread and lentil stew. How stupid, if you forgive the pun. But Jacob let him. Jacob is a schemer and a shyster. But it gets worse. And we move into Genesis 27. Okay, if you just turn over to Genesis 27. By this time, the dad, Isaac, is old. And because he's old, he's blind. And because he's old and he's blind, he thinks he's going to die. So he summons his best boy, Esau. And he says, go out hunting and then bring me back some tasty food. And then I will give you my blessing. I will give you all my blessing. Off he goes, and while he's gone, Rebekah and Jacob carry out a scam. Rebekah makes a tasty stew, just as Isaac likes it. They dress Jacob in Esau's clothes so that he smells just like Esau. They cover Jacob's hands and neck in goatskins to make him hairy, just like Esau. And Jacob goes in to see his father, Isaac. We had the police here on Wednesday. They came to the cafe on Wednesday morning. They wanted to warn people about a scam that has been really successful around here. Look, they gave us a poster about it. Someone rings you up on the phone and they pretend to be from your bank or from the police. And they tell you that someone has been using your bank accounts and someone has been spending your money, and you feel really upset and you feel really angry, but you feel also very grateful that someone has taken the time to ring you to tell you about it. And you feel so grateful that you actually give this person over the phone your PIN number. And then these people actually send a taxi round to take your bank card away. And then, armed with your bank card and your PIN number, they empty your bank account and they spend your money. You laugh. It's rife. Jacob goes in, he pretends to be Esau, and he empties Isaac's bank account. There is nothing left when Esau comes in. Chapter 27, verse 31, Esau too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, "My father, sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing." And his father, blind with old age, says, "Who are you? Who are you?" "I am your son," Esau answered. "Your firstborn, Esau." And you know what, right? Verse 33 sends shivers down my spine. Isaac trembled violently. He knows that his blessing, once said, cannot be unsaid. Like that money scammed from a bank account, once it's gone, it's gone. The blessing is more than a prayer, it is a prophecy whose fulfillment is certain. And because of Jacob's deceit and deception, because of his scam, it's gone to Jacob and not to Esau. Verse 37, Isaac goes on, "I have made him, Jacob, Lord over you. And I've made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son? What can I do?" There is nothing. It's really pitiful. Esau knows exactly what's happened. He knows what it means, and he cries out, and he weeps with rage and anguish, and he pleads with his dad, "Please, you must have something you can give me." But there is nothing. Nothing. Do you know, we are meant to feel the pain and the outrage of Esau and what Rebekah and Jacob have done. But you know, like I said, these stories are not black and white. I want you to imagine having 2 children, and lots of you do have 2 children, so you can imagine it. But I want you to imagine favouring one of your children so clearly that as you near death, you bring in the favourite on his own and you tell him you're going to give him everything. There will be nothing for the other. That is what Isaac was planning. Esau, everything. Jacob, nothing. It flies in the face of fairness, doesn't it? Even back then, it flies in the face of all convention. And we need to be clear, Esau went along with this plan. He was perfectly willing to sell out his brother, but he ends up with nothing. But you know, there's even more to it than this. Let me tell you, Isaac knew God's promises to his sons. Even before their birth, God had chosen Jacob to be the focus of his plans, but Isaac wanted Esau, and he was determined to thwart God's plan. He thinks, God wants Jacob, but I know better. I'm going to bless Esau. What a dangerous place to put yourself. No wonder he trembled violently. It's not just his wife and his son who've confounded him. He has been overruled by the God of the universe. Very quickly as we finish, I want to apply this just very quickly to you and me this morning, okay? First thing, God's sovereign election and grace. We need to accept this. God chooses Jacob. Jacob's done nothing to deserve that. As he grows up, he continues to do nothing to deserve God's grace. If he did, it wouldn't be grace. It would not be grace. It would be earned, and he would have something to boast in. But we're meant to see that whatever happens in this man's life, whatever he might achieve, it is all as a result of God's sovereign election and grace. And that is to be a picture of how God works in all of us. In his grace, he first chooses us and redeems us. Secondly, this is really important, God's plan never needs our sin to succeed. There is no justification for what Rebekah and Jacob do. She sees her favourite being excluded. She thinks she sees God's plan being messed up. She thinks, I'll just sort it out for God. She should have trusted God. He is faithful to his promises, and he is sovereign over all things. And as we look at these little stories about Jacob, that's what we're going to see week after week. He will use Jacob, and he'll use us in spite of our sin, but he never needs our sin. He never needs it to see his plans through. Did you happen to see Terry Wogan's Island the other night? I was at a very loose end and I happened to catch the end of it. Terry Wogan, he said in interview, he said, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in heaven. I don't believe in hell. I'm rich. I'm powerful. I'm popular. I don't believe in any of it. And I found it strangely unsettling. I really did. Why doesn't God make himself clear to a man like Terry Wogan? Why? But you know, I've been greatly comforted by these verses. You know, in some sense, Isaac didn't believe. Rebekah didn't believe. Jacob didn't believe. And yet God's plan stands. He will draw a people to himself from every tribe and nation, all saved by grace. And wonderfully, what I think, what Terry Wogan thinks or says, will not affect that. It won't make any difference to God's plan. Unbelief, deception, sin, none of it will stop God's plan. That's why these words are so helpful in showing us what God is like. That's why it's worth reading them. Amen.